What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you an update to Dogmatikas. Now this is the Dogmatika ritual version. This doesn't involve, well, it kind of involves branded cards, but not like Albaz. It's not a branded style. This is like the Dogmatika version of the lore. So I'm going to take you through the entire profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it. It also involves the brand new card that we received in Maze of Muertos. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you'll miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the deck for the Dogmatika monsters themselves, going to be maxing out on Dogmatika Ecclesia the Virtuous. Now, one of the big changes that this deck went through is it now no longer has very direct, easy access to Herald of the Arc Light, or just any access to it whatsoever, in order to kind of get its pieces ticking. So that's where Ecclesia is going to come into play, because this is going to be one of your main ways of being able to do that. In order to replace the access of being able to get to your ritual monsters or ritual spells, you do need to lean into a different normal summon, and that one is going to be Manju. Now, you don't have to directly play Manju, you can play Senju if you want to, or in addition to. But I still feel that you want to normal summon down the Manju, use this effect to try and grab your ritual monster or spell, whichever piece you are missing, and then you can utilize the other cards in order to get you where you need to go, especially trying to work your way into Dogmatika Matrix, which is just incredibly insane, because this lets you add a Dogmatika ritual monster or a Dogmatika ritual spell from the deck to the hand. So directly trying to get access to this card really does open up the door to possibly playing Pot of Prosperity in the main deck if you want it, or you can also play Pot of Extravagance, but it might be a little bit risky. Then carrying on back with the Dogmatika cards, of course, probably the most expensive one right now in the main deck, and that is going to be Dogmatika Fleur-de-Lis, the Thunderbolt. So what makes this card so incredibly good is that as long as there are a monster on the field that is specialed from the extra deck, you get to special summon this card from the hand as a quick effect. You can do it during your opponent's turn as well. If it is special summoned from the hand, you get to set a Dogmatika trap directly from the deck. It can be activated this turn. While your opponent controls a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link with 2,500 or more attack, you can only use each effect once per turn. Now, the card you're going to want to go to off the back of this is going to be Dogmatika Punishment, which you can very easily afford to play this at free, and the Quad Dogmatika Beast. Now, the Beast lets you target a monster in your graveyard or banishment and send to the graveyard a monster from your extra deck or a Dogmatika monster from the deck, with attack higher than that target in the graveyard, or equal. And if you do special summon that target, until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck. Only use each effect once per turn. So it's kind of a nice way of being able to kind of swap around some cards in your graveyard or banishment. And then it also lets you send from the extra deck, which is kind of what you want to try and do to trigger off more effects. And as long as the attack is higher to or equal to the original target. But you have to be able to special summon that target, which more times than not will be like your Manju, your Ecclesia, all of your other Dogmatika monsters, which is why Punishment is going to be your go-to card. Then we've got two of the brand new Lawbringer. I'm tempted to play this at free, but I feel that you're only going to play it free if you build this deck to go more purely going second. So if a monster is special summoned from the extra deck is on the field and this card is in the hand, you get to special summon it. If it is special summoned from the hand, you can have each player send one monster from their extra decks to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to target a Dogmatika card in the graveyard, accept itself, and add it back to the hand. So it's a nice recycle option. It's better going second because obviously it lets you rip from your opponent's extra deck. The other thing this deck doesn't really have is the ability of playing a monster that can, like a Link monster that can special summon itself, or like a Link monster you can turn your Ecclesia or maybe more so your Manju into. The only one you can really go into is Artemis. And even then, when you go through into Artemis, you're only going to be able to do that off of Ecclesia, and you usually lock yourself out of the extra deck once you resolve the Ecclesia the way you want to. So you are relying on your opponent's extra deck in order to trigger off most of your special summon effects of your Dogmatikas, mainly like cards like your Fleur-de-Lis the Knighted and the Dogmatika Maximus. But your Mac Daddy boss monsters and your control cards that you're going to want to be utilizing going first is going to be your free Dogmatika Albert Zoa. So it cannot be ritual summoned except by Dogmatika Calamity or another Dogmatika card effect. Dogmatika monsters you control are unaffected by the activate effects of your opponent's Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Links. During your main phase, you get to make your opponent choose and apply one of these effects. You in these effects is your opponent. So for every 2 cards in your opponent's extra deck, they have to send 1 card from their hand or extra deck to the graveyard. They return all Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Links they control to the extra deck. So you're either decimating their extra deck, which you're going to be trying to do with the rest of your cards anyway, or you're going to be able to force them to kind of clear their field off. Got the one white relic and the one white knight. It's a shame that we don't have herald for these decks, and this is the one thing that I do like about other TCGs, is that there is a TCG that did this thing with a Forbidden Limited list where they didn't forbid a card completely, but they forbid a combination. So basically they said, for example, taking it into Yu-Gi-Oh terms, they said Herald of the Arc-Light cannot be used with this particular card. So it'd be like Herald of the Arc-Light cannot be used in a Mitsurugi deck. The issue is there's very hard ways to be actually, well, in a Yummy deck, it's very hard to actually determine what is a Yummy deck. Like if it contains a single Yummy card, is it a Yummy deck? And I suppose that's where it gets a little bit confusing. But with the Relic and the Knight, so the Relic, again, you special summon it with Dogmatika Kambare, and if it is ritual summoned, you get to target 2 face-up monsters on the field. Make one of those monsters gain attack equal to that monster's attack level or 8 or higher. It's other monster's attack. Level 8 or higher Dogmatika monster you control cannot be destroyed by battle, and if a monster is special from your opponent's extra deck, except during the damage state, look at your opponent's extra deck and send a monster from it. So the idea is you want to control our opponent's extra deck. Getting rid of that Snatchy Yummy is going to give you such an advantage against your opponent. Getting rid of that Dragoon is also going to give you an advantage. The White Knight locks you from being able to special summon from the extra deck, but if your opponent activates a card or effect, except during damage state, you get to send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, you look at your opponent's extra deck and send one monster from it to the grave. It gains attack equal to half the combined attack of all monsters sent to the graveyard until the end of the turn. But again, you're decimating your opponent's extra deck, you're taking away their pieces, you're sending cards from your extra deck to the graveyard to then give you more advantage. Whether that be a Garura Draw, whether that be an Elder Entity Natis Destruction, whether that be an Albion to get you the Fallen and the Virtuous, or whether that be a Titaniclad to get you a Dogmatika monster. Then the most insane spell in the entire deck for the Dogmatikas is the Dogmatika Matrix. So when it is activated, you get to add a Dogmatika Ritual monster or a Dogmatika Ritual spell from the deck to the hand. If your opponent controls a monster, you get to add a Dogmatika card from the deck to the hand as well. Once per turn, if you control a Dogmatika Ritual monster, you get to look at either player's extra deck and send a monster from it to the graveyard. Only activate one Dogmatika Matrix per turn. Then we've got the one Dogmatika Kambare and the one Dogmatika Calamity. You can play these more if you want to. That's not the end of the world if you do it. But I've kind of tried to go down the route of maximizing direct routes to Dogmatika Matrix. Considering you're playing 5 ritual monsters and 2 ritual spells, you just need ways to consistently get to them. And I didn't want to clog the deck down. But if you were going to max any out, I'd probably be looking at the Calamity just to max this one out at 3. So this lets you be used to ritual summon any Dogmatika ritual monster from the hand or grave. You must also tree a monster from the hand or field and or banish fusion synchro monsters from the graveyard whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you want to ritual summon. Then if both White Knight and White Relic are on the field, you get to look at either your extra deck or your opponent's and send a monster from it to the graveyard. This one, again, you get to ritual summon any Dogmatika ritual monster. You must also tribute monsters from the hand or field whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summoned, or you send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard whose level equals the level of the ritual monster you are trying to ritual summon. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck. So very, very specific, and again, you're trying to make sure you're getting the right high level monsters in order to get your ritual monster access. 3 Nadir Servant, send a monster from the extra deck, add a card with a attack equal to or higher, equal to or less. So unfortunately, you were able to send Herald of the Arc-Light, search out the White Relic or the White Knight. That's not going to be the case anymore. So you're going to have to send a monster from the extra deck to the graveyard to then add a Dogmatika. And then when you're trying to add the Albazoa, obviously you need to be able to send a monster that is more than 4k, which can get a little bit tricky, but there are ways to do that. Then for the final card that I'm playing is the one, like, apart from non-engine, is the Shaddoll Schism. The reason I'm playing this is because you don't have to main it, you could very easily side it. But the idea with the Schism is, what you do through Dogmatika Matrix, Nadir Servant, you name it, is you're trying to send the App Clone. App Clone then searches you out the Schism, you then discard a card. Then what you have is you've got the ability to set the Schism and activate it during your opponent's turn, banishing the App Cologne as the Shaddoll monster, and then any dark monster in your entire graveyard to then fusion summon out your El Shaddoll Winder. Winder then obviously stops both players being able to only special summon once, and that can really, really catch your opponent off guard and slow them down. If your environment is running around with droplets, crowns, imperms, you name it, then don't go for it, don't use it, you don't side it in, it opens up some space in your extra deck, you name it, you've got a lot of different options. Then for the final non-engine pieces, I've got 3 Super Polymerization. The extra is actually really, really flexible, but if you don't want to play Super Polymerization, you could play Path of Extravagance, as I've already mentioned, but I just like this idea of being able to break your opponent's field can be very important. 3 Fuelos, because you need benefits of being able to go second as well. free Ash Blossom, and then finally free the Fallen and the Virtuous. Not only does it send a monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, which if you're sending Albions or Titaniclad, you're going to get advantages off the back of it, but it's also being able to disrupt your opponent as a nice kind of, not trade-off, but just a nice way of being able to destroy it and then destroy. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now we're going to be moving on, as I tidy this up, on to, last one, Ecclesia, the extra deck. So moving on to the extra deck, I'll start off with the branded-esque cards that you're going to use as your targets. So you've got Titaniclad, we've got the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, and then of course we do have Albion and Ecclesia themselves. So the idea is that your Titaniclad will let you special summon a Dogmatika, which is ideally what you're aiming for. So can the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, and then the Albion gives you access to the Fallen and the Virtuous. Then obviously you have the Ecclesia, which is another card you can send off of the Fallen and the Virtuous you set off of Albion, and that's going to allow you to put the Albion back into the extra deck and then shuffle a card back into the field. So this gives you, from the field back into the deck, so it gives you a lot of disruption. Then I've got 2 Winders. You don't have to play 2 Winders, and I am missing a card right now, which is going to be the App Clone, so you would play the 1 App Clone as well. The idea is with the 2 Winders, because you've got the space, more times than not, when your opponent clears the first Winder off, they don't ever expect a second. But you can now make a second because you would banish the first Winder. That would then be able to be banished, and then any other Dark Monster gets you the second Winder. You don't have to play it, but that's an option for you. And this card right here, or this field turn that I'm using, is a kind of proxy for the App Clone. I just couldn't find any of my copies. Then for the other targets you're going to want to send, and can also be, well, let's go with the targets you can send first, being the Elder Entity and the Tis. This can obviously very easily be sent with your Nadir Servant and then turn into a Disruptor. And then your cards that can also be sent, but also be super polymerization targets, are 2 Garura. One is a super poly target, one is a send target, but you can again cut down some of these doubles and start going for some singles, and that's when you can open up the extra deck for, as I quickly look into it, go for, if you need a bit of a higher attack than the 1500, which you should be absolutely fine for your Dogmatika monsters. There's very few monsters that are the Dogmatika cards you need to be above 1500, unless you want to get into the Lawbringer. But then that's when you consider the Tribal Games Arms 2, just because it's a level 3500, and then it would send the other Garura. So you would take out 1 Garura, and then you'd put that in there if you wanted to, entirely up to you. The other super poly targets I'm playing around with is the Dracus Depelia, Mud Dragon, and Starving Venom. But again, very easily sub out your Starving Venoms, and they could be whatever you need to. The final 2 cards are 2 Synchro monsters, the one in the Ig Master Pack Bit, and the one in the Despian Lulu Warlith. So when I take it back to the Dogmatic Calamity, you're going to want to send your Despian Lulu Warlith to summon out your Albazoa, and then you can also set out your Pack Bit to get you into your White Knight of Calamities. You've then, of course, got the ability for your Elder Entity and the Tis to get you access to your White Relic. So you've got all of these different options that you can get to off of the back of the Dogmatic Calamity, entirely up to you. So they're the levels that you kind of play around with. Of course, you can play them along if you wanted to, but you want to try and go quite like how Necros play, have the direct levels that you're going to need in order to get you access to the monsters you want to summon. And that's pretty much it for the entire main deck and, the course, the extra deck. In regards to a side deck, the side deck would really come down to the environment and then the build you choose to go with. What I mean by that is if you choose to main deck the Schism with the Winders and everything, then you open up the extra deck to be able to, side deck, sorry, to be stuff like, I would consider possibly Secret Village of the Spellcasters. You could utilize that against the Runic matchups. But you've also got anti-magic arrows, you've got magic deflectors, you've got evenly matches, which I think are a great card. Nibiru. Like, you could really lean this deck into being a, not pure, but a more heavy go second field breaker option. And then that's when you'd get a bit more advantage out of the back of the Lawbringer. You'd get more advantage out of the back of the Dogmatika Flood, that it's the Thunderbolt, and then it gives you less effect out the back of the Zoa, but the Zoa still decimates your opponent's field. Like, going first, you decimate their extra deck, going second, you decimate their field. So it does have a very nice balance to it as well, which is kind of cool. And that's what I like about playing this as the ritual style of the deck, just because it gives it a bit more break. Now, I'm not saying that this is the perfect version of Dogmatikas, but the ability to utilize all of the cards we do have in the Alba, the Thunderbolt, the brand new Lawbringer is just quite nice to do. And yeah, it's not exactly massively expensive. You can adapt it to Genesis. I think I've got like a rough list together on Genesis for this deck. Nothing too like crazy at all. But the idea is, once I find it, so the other is you'd have to lose your Nadir Servants, you have to lose the Fallen and the Virtuous, and you lose the Ash Blossoms. That would then, if I do the maths quickly here, if I clear all of those off, that would then take you down to 72 points. So you actually have a lot of points to play with. You would then still, I would probably go for the Sanjis, or Senju, sorry, just to increase your access to your ritual monsters and everything else in between, and then kind of work it that way. But that's pretty much it for the entire profile. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.